Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another economic capsule on the Puerto Rico economy. Today we are going to talk about a very hot topic, which is the proposal of President Biden to increase federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour. Can Puerto Rico really afford this wage increase? What are the factors to be considered for this increase? Can Puerto Rico do it with such an open economy, an economy that is in depression, an economy that is bankrupt? What will this impact be on this Puerto Rico economy? Don't forget, those of you who like our economic capsules, to give us like in YouTube and to follow us so that you can keep up with our notifications on economic analysis for Puerto Rico. Today, we are going to talk about this federal minimum wage. Did you know that the last wage increase in Puerto Rico was in 2009? And it was gradual. It was $5.15 in 2006, and it was increased 70 cents each year through July of 2009, when Puerto Rico finally achieved $7.25. And remember, this was the time when we were in the midst of this great recession because of this financial crisis, the big global bubble of real estate and mortgage crisis. But the $7.25 were also implemented in Puerto Rico, but over a period of almost 4 years. Now, let's look at the context so that you understand that the federal minimum wage was done for the U.S. economy. It was not done for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a different context, and that's what I want to highlight in terms of these differences. Let's look at this graph. This graph depicts the median wage in Puerto Rico, this red line, from 2006 through 2019. And the blue line is the U.S. median wage, hourly wage, and the bars is the percentage of Puerto Rico's median compared with the U.S. So notice in 2019, Puerto Rico has a median hourly wage of $10.13 versus $19.14 in the U.S. And in fact, by 2020, the U.S. has already surpassed this. It's somewhere in the region of $20 to $21. But we do not have the information for Puerto Rico. That's why I stay with 2019 for official figures. So notice that our median salary is 53% of the U.S. So if the U.S. is proposing a $15 minimum wage, notice they already have $19 as a median. But Puerto Rico is $10. It's below that. Remember that a median is a statistical measure that tells you where people are more or less concentrated in the middle of this distribution. An average wage, for instance, will give you the top levels with the lower levels, and it will give you an average. But the median will tell you most of the people centered around that middle is more representative in terms of wage. Let's look at the other context. What has been happening in this economy versus the U.S. economy in terms of real GNP growth? Well, ours is the red line, again, over the same period, 2006 through 2019. And the blue line is the U.S., and Puerto Rico is the red line. Anything below this horizontal black line, which is a zero line, tells you that we have negative real growth. And with some exceptions, which is like 2012 and maybe this little bit in 2019, every other year has been negative growth for Puerto Rico, whereas the U.S. economy has been in positive territory and probably is only in negative territory in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So two different things. A median wage in Puerto Rico, which is 53% of what is taking place in the U.S., so they can afford the $15 because they're already there. But Puerto Rico is not there. You know how many people are below $10, below that median? Almost 275,000 people. That's almost like like 30% of Puerto Rico's job, of 860,000 jobs that we have in this market right now. So a lot of people are going to be impacted if this federal minimum wage is imposed here in Puerto Rico immediately. So the key has to be gradual, and we have to know which sectors are going to be most affected. Notice the third factor. Whenever you get a wage increase, it should be tied to productivity. So for instance, if you as an employer pay a young person, maybe just a high school graduate, or a person who doesn't have too much education but is a young person, well, probably the output of that person is maybe an hour $4.25, and you pay that person $7.25. Who pays for that difference of $3? That's a loss for you as an employer, because that person is not producing $7.25, but only $4.25, and you as an employer are paying more than that. Do you think that is feasible in a capitalistic economy? Well, maybe for government, and even for government, it should not be acceptable either, because we as taxpayers, we are the government. We are paying for that. So notice what has been happening in productivity, measured as GNP divided by jobs, and doing an index with the base of 2012. So all these years, we have divided by the productivity of 2012, so that this index tells you how much we were above or below what was happening in 2012. Notice the blue line is the US. Productivity kept rising, 107, so that's 7% higher than in 2012. Notice what has been happening in Puerto Rico. Yes, it increased, it recovered a little bit, and then it went down. It's 89 in this index. That means that it is 11% below what it used to be in 2012. And on top of that, so lower productivity, depression in terms of economic growth, which is negative, and a median salary, which is 53% of the US. And on top of that, we have this employment market, this job market in Puerto Rico, which tells you that the labor force participation rate, those who are 16 years and older, who are either employed or looking for a job, divided by that population of 16, is 40%. 60% are not even looking for a job. They're not even participating. Whereas in the States, it's the other way around. 66% are participating, and only 34% are not participating in the labor market. Even though we look at an unemployment which is 8.5%, it looks low compared to 16.3 in 2010. Notice that it's because people are not even participating in the job market. So people are just discouraged, they are not looking for that, or worse still, there are negative incentives to working, because if I receive more by receiving unemployment benefits or the fiscal stimulus of by the COVID-19, why should I work? Because otherwise they will take away all these benefits. So it takes more than just saying, of course we are all in favor of receiving more. And on top of that, we have a very open economy. What do you think people do, especially those who receive very low income? They're going to spend that fiscal stimulus very quickly. Where are they going to spend it? In consumption. Does Puerto Rico produce cars, TVs, icebox? Of course not. We do not. All those electronic appliances, we only really produce here some of the services. And so that's 60% of our consumption is imported. Where do you think all that money goes back to? To the US, which is our principal market. So be careful. We need to understand which sectors are going to be more adversely affected. And I think it's going to be the retail sector, small and medium enterprises that will not be able to afford this. And of course, there will be other sectors. Manufacturing might be adversely affected too, if we want to compete globally. And then there are going to be other services. So be careful, legislators in Puerto Rico, before you engage in all these mad bills to increase because of populist trends. Let's do research. Let's do serious analyzing so that Puerto Rico's economy benefits and more people really get the incentive to work. Until the next capsule.